66 books, 40 different authors, written over 1,500 years, in 3 different languages, on 3 different continents.
Most of these writers never met each other. Moses never met Isaiah. David never met Paul. Daniel never met John. They lived centuries apart, in completely different cultures, with completely different backgrounds.
And yet, every single one of them was telling the same story.
One story, one theme, one secret thread that runs from the very first verse of Genesis to the very last verse of Revelation. And when you see it, you cannot unsee it. Most Christians have read the Bible for years, gone to church for decades, and completely missed it. Not because they weren't paying attention, but because nobody showed them where to look. Today, we are going to look. The secret begins in Genesis chapter 3, the most important chapter in the entire Bible, because everything that comes after it is the answer to what went wrong here. God created everything perfect. He walked with Adam and Eve in the garden, face to face. No barrier, no distance, no shame. And then, one choice, one moment, and everything broke. They hid from God. For the first time in human history, man was separated from his Creator. The relationship was broken, the garden was lost, and death entered the world. But in that same moment, before the consequences were even announced, God said something. To the serpent. Genesis 3:15. I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and hers. He will crush your head, and you will strike his heel. That is the secret, right there, in the 3rd chapter of the 1st book. A promise that someone was coming, someone who would crush the serpent, someone who would fix what had just broken. The rest of the Bible, all 65 books that follow, is the story of that someone. Watch what happens next, because this thread doesn't disappear. It gets stronger with every single book. God called Abraham and said, "Through your offspring, all nations on earth will be blessed. The someone who is coming will come through Abraham's family." The thread continues. Then, Moses. God gave Israel the entire sacrificial system. Every year, a lamb without blemish, slaughtered, blood applied to the doorpost, so the angel of death would pass over. Why a lamb? Why blood? Why Passover? Because the entire system was pointing forward to someone. Then David. God promised him, "Your throne will be established forever, a king from David's line, who would rule without end." The thread continues. Then Isaiah. 700 years before Jesus was born, Isaiah wrote, "The virgin will conceive and give birth to a son, and will call him Emmanuel, God with us." And then in Isaiah 53, the most remarkable passage in the Old Testament, he describes someone who would be pierced for our transgressions, crushed for our iniquities. By his wounds we are healed. Written 700 years before the cross, word for word, what happened on Good Friday. And then, after 400 years of silence, after 400 years of no prophets, no new scripture, no word from God, a baby was born in a stable in Bethlehem of the tribe of Judah, of the line of David, born of a virgin, named Emmanuel, God with us. Every thread pulled tight at that exact moment. The offspring of the woman, Genesis 3. The blessing to all nations, Abraham. The Passover lamb, Moses. The eternal king, David. The suffering servant, Isaiah. Every single one was talking about the same person. And here is what makes this impossible to explain away. Jesus fulfilled over 300 specific prophecies, written by different authors, over 1,500 years. Mathematicians have calculated the probability of one person fulfilling just 8 of those prophecies, by chance, is 1 in 100 quadrillion.
He fulfilled over 300. But the thread doesn't end at the manger or even at the cross. It continues through every book of the New Testament. Matthew wrote his gospel for Jewish readers, and he showed them Jesus was the new Moses, the new king, the fulfillment of every promise God made to Israel. John opened his gospel with, "In the beginning was the Word," taking us straight back to Genesis 1. In the beginning God created, the same beginning, the same God, now on revealed in flesh. And then, Revelation, the last book, written by John on the island of Patmos. And what does it describe? A new garden, a new creation, God dwelling with man again, face to face, no barrier, no distance, no shame. Genesis 3, man is separated from God. Revelation 22, man is restored to God. The tree of life was lost in Genesis. It is found again in Revelation. The entire Bible is one story, with one hero and one ending. Now, here is why this matters for you. Personally, right now, most people experience the Bible as a collection of disconnected stories. Some inspiring, some confusing, some violent, some beautiful, but random. A history book, a rule book, a poetry book, all jumbled together. But it was never meant to be read that way. It is one story, with a beginning, the garden, a problem, the separation, a hero who was promised in Genesis 3, a rescue, the cross, an ending, the restoration. When you see it this way, the sacrificial system in Leviticus makes sense. It was pointing forward to the cross. The story of Abraham and Isaac makes sense. A father offering his only son was a preview of what God would do. The Passover lamb makes sense. The suffering servant makes sense. The eternal king makes sense. Everything makes sense, because everything was always about the same person. And if the entire Bible, written by 40 strangers over 1,500 years, all points to the same person, then that person is worth knowing. 66 books, 40 authors, 1,500 years, 3 languages, 3 continents, 1 story. It started with a broken garden and a promise. Someone is coming who will crush the serpent. It ended with a new garden and a fulfillment. Behold, I make all things new. In between those 2 gardens is the most remarkable story ever told, and at the center of it is a person, not a religion, not a set of rules, not a moral system, a person who was promised before the world began, who arrived exactly on time, who died exactly as predicted, who rose exactly as he said he would. The Bible is not a book about what you must do. It is a book about what has already been done. For you, the secret that runs through every book is not a secret anymore. He who has ears, let him hear.
If this changed how you see the Bible, subscribe, because next week we go even deeper into the stories that most people have never heard, and that will never leave you the same.